This is A View from the Bunker. Now, here's Derek Gilbert.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And He has blessed some of us with the ability to share our hope in Christ Jesus with words, both written and spoken. Welcome to A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. Some of us actually have the ability to take that word and rap with it. Listen to this.
Dawkins told the crowd they should ridicule religious people. Let me quote him. He says, "Mock them, ridicule them in public. Their beliefs are insane, therefore they should be ridiculed with contempt."
Years in the future, this may serve as a reminder, like a verbal time capsule. All of your treasure meant for the minds that denied in the past, ignoring the signs every time that we ask you to listen. You dismissed us consistently, and now you're living out prophecy. First-hand witness to the times and the miseries. No denying all the signs and conspiracies. We poured our hearts out and urged you to listen. Implored you to think, to make the right decision. Laughing aside, you displayed the devil's advocate. Every time you heard the truth, you turned the opposite. Rejected anything that stood against your politics. Convinced yourself that you were good by thinking positive. Always the optimist. Are you still confident that ignorance is bliss during the apocalypse? Smack dab in the middle of the storyline. Slap in your face, shift in your paradigm. Searching your mind for the memories you blocked out. The information that you knew was true but locked out. Conversations that you wish could be repeated. Warning calls that you wish you would have heeded. Thought all those Christians were living in denial, but now you do anything to understand the Bible.
That is a title cut from a new album called Shift Your Paradigm from Destiny Lab, and joining us for the first time in 8 years, and it is far too long, Arc of Destiny Lab, a.k.a. Dave Britton. Dave, welcome back to A View from the Bunker.
Thank you so much for having me back, Derek. It's a pleasure to be talking with you again. It has definitely been too long.
Yeah, I looked it up just before the broadcast here and wanted to find out when it was that we had last spoken. I know that you were gracious enough to allow us to use some tracks from your previous album, Naturally Selected, as bumper music when we did our View from the Bunker broadcast at the 2012 Future Congress in Branson. And some of those tracks came back when we played some audio from that conference a few weeks ago. Went back into the archives and pulled out the interview, or really the roundtable discussion with L.A. Marzulli, Doug Hamp, and Rob Skiba on the Nephilim. And so some of your music came back, and then you reached out with the tracks for your new album. It's like, wow. Oh, okay. I'd kind of forgotten how much I enjoyed listening to it. And I'm not a rap fan by nature. I mean, you can tell by my Skype handle, I'm actually more into like 20s and 30s jazz and swing and so forth.
Yeah. No, I get it. Rap is a dirty word in a lot of people's vocab. I mean, I am actually not a huge rap fan, to be honest with you, especially a lot of the rap of today. I like some of the old school kind of rap that I grew up with in the 80s. I'm kind of too old to be making rap music, but I'm kind of caught in this old school style of rap music that I just enjoyed as a kid. That's just what I grew up with. I grew up in the time when breakdancing first came out.
Oh, yeah.
And rap was just first being introduced. So it was just, something me and my friends just did for fun, but I never really set out to really be a rapper until, the situations I went through and just felt convicted to make this music. So.
Yeah, Christian rap is, I would imagine, a fairly small genre. How many of there are you who are actually producing this type of music?
Yeah, well, Christian rap is actually a pretty big genre, to be honest.
Okay, well, shows how out of touch I am.
The subgenre of Nephilim, transhumanism.
Well, there we go. Yeah.
Alien deception, hip-hop. Now that's a niche music genre there. There's maybe like 4 or 5 of people that I know that even have ever made music that talk about this kind of stuff. And I'm the only one, maybe two other guys kind of specialize in talking about these kind of subjects. But, I started this back in the late 90s, officially forged the name Destiny Lab in 2004. But started making music about creation, evolution, and alien deception in the late 90s. But a long time to kind of package it and get together. So.
Yeah. Well, some of your earlier albums, first one released in 2010, the second one also in 2010, and then you had another album in 2013, but some, you can tell by the song titles, Creation is Proof. Let's see here. Evolve or Die, Ye Shall Be as Gods, Ezekiel's Wheel, the UFO Puzzle, Days of Noah, War of the Worlds, Event Horizon, Have You Entertained Angels? A little bit different from what you'd expect from a rap artist, even one who is a Christian rapper, but some of the stuff on your new disc with titles that would be familiar to people who listen to this podcast for any length of time. For example, Higher Entities, which the Fall Brothers used as the title of their recent documentary film on the UFO phenomenon. Shift Your Paradigm, which is a kind of a worldview thing. Fee-Fi-Fo-Fum, a reference to giants, I would assume.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, this is one that I took a liking to the first time I heard it. In fact, we'll play a cut from it right now, and then we want to talk about what inspired that and how you're going to work this into a video. Fee-Fi-Fo-Fum from Destiny Lab.
Let's take a trip back to civilization, Babylonian kings and ancient Mesopotamia. Research inscriptions and read translations, the myths and legends, what's fact from fiction. Depictions of giants who ruled the land, double rows of teeth and six-fingered hands. The men of renown before the flood, where the angels fell to pollute the blood. They mingled the seed with both man and beast, and besieged the whole world with these circus freaks. They were drowned in the deluge, but once deceased, they became demon beings to corrupt beliefs. The basis of myths, these strange relations, the gods of the Greeks and the ancient pagans. They worship the sun and the moon and stars, and channel these spirits like avatars.
Fee-Fi-Fo-Fum, the Nephilim bloodlines from the fallen ones. The ancient hybrids and redhead giants have now returned like a deadly virus.
Okay, definitely got a hook. And intelligent lyrics, as do all of your tracks, Dave. Now, how are you going to set this to video? What is going to be the theme of the video when you put this out for people to watch?
Well, this video has actually already been created, so it hasn't been released yet, though, publicly. I had a guy that's made a lot of my videos in the past is a friend of mine named Michael Myers, who's just a really devout listener of our music, and he made several of our videos. Probably 8-10 years ago. He's making all kinds of videos for us, and then he had to stop because of his work schedule and whatnot. And he was enough to come back and make one more video for us for this new album, for this Fee-Fi-Fo-Fum, and he really hit it out of the park with this video. So if you go to my YouTube page, probably by the time this comes out, that video will be public. So look up Fee-Fi-Fo-Fum by Destiny Lab, and you'll see the amazing video for that. It's pretty good.
I'll put a link in the notes at vftb.net or wherever else you're hearing this podcast. You'll find a link to the YouTube channel there so you can check out the video. In fact, if I can embed it in the notes, I'll do that as well. What was it that drew you to this particular niche? I mean, I know just from the standpoint of writing or podcasting, having done this podcast for over 11 years now, and Sharon and I starting PID Radio back in 2005, we kind of got pegged as, the people who are obsessed with the Nephilim, even though that really wasn't one of the main subjects of the podcast over the years. It's just one of those things that's so weird that when, other Christians see it, they kind of turn up their nose a little bit. What was it that led you to the subject?
Well, I was kind of drawn to it by accident. I use the name Destiny Lab because I feel it was kind of destiny in a way. It was kind of God's plan, the way when looking back at it all, because a lot of the things that set me up to make this music wasn't necessarily planned. I liked hip hop and rap music as a young kid, but I'm not the type of person that ever would like to get on stage or be the center of attention, or, and if you look at my videos, I'm on maybe two videos of dozens and dozens of videos that we've made. I don't really like to be, and I don't really like to do live performances. I've done them, but it's not my thing, but I love making rap music and making rhymes. And I loved, when I was a kid, just memorizing raps with my friends and just doing it for fun. So, and I also am big into sci-fi like yourself, you and Sharon, I know. And as I grew up in a small town, Oregon, and at the age 18, I moved to Hollywood, California. I started making prosthetic masks and doing makeup and full latex masks at about the age of 14.
Wow.
And just taught myself, and I was really passionate about making monster and creature effects. And I just always into the paranormal, into the weird, into, even though I was raised in a Christian home, I was just, into the off the wall kind of stuff like that. And I went to a church that actually had a lot of reach outs during the Halloween season. We'd have dress up parties and invite all the kids there and stuff. And then they would have kind of a talk at the end of the dangers of the occult, the dangers of, witchcraft and all this evil stuff, and that kind of stuff kind of just stopped. Not a lot of people do that very much anymore, but that had a big impression on me as a kid to try to witness to people in a unique way. And the fact that just because something's scary doesn't necessarily mean it's evil. I like to say God's the greatest creature designer of all time. You look at insects, you look at dinosaurs, you look at some of the animals that God has created, microscopic creatures, deep sea creatures. These are far more horrific and scarier than anything that I think any humans ever really made. So it's kind of a matter of perspective of, what is necessarily evil. And I think we give Satan a little too much credit on that he has, anything scary looking is automatically evil. I don't agree with that. I think it could just be fascinating looking. It could just be very interesting looking. It could be just curious. That's how I see these things. So anyway, I moved to California, and the first movie I worked on was The Lawnmower Man. And I don't know if you've seen this movie, but it's all about transhumanism and how, using technology to, upload into a person's consciousness, and this guy thought he could become a god, basically.
Yeah, young Jeff Fahey. Yeah,
exactly, young Jeff Fahey. And I was really deep into aliens, and when I went down to California, I kind of strayed away. I got deep into the alien deception. I wanted to, at one point, I started believing the aliens, maybe they're just misunderstood and they're angels in disguise. And because I started seeing all this stuff about angels and aliens, and I started studying the abduction experiences of people and started hearing this reoccurring theme of the original sin that I remember being told about when I was younger. If you eat of this fruit, ye shall be as gods. And this was always the message told to these people that were abducted by aliens, it seemed like, or people that were doing channeling. I also got into kind of the Grateful Dead and, taking magic mushroom, doing a lot of things that were kind of not Christian-like, but exposed me to a lot of elements of the New Age, the occult, the alien deception, and transhumanism with this thing. And so all these things just became curiosities of mine. I started investigating them more and more. And as I did, I started seeing the biblical overtones, which brought me back to realizing these things were absolute deceptions, used by the enemy to manipulate people throughout time. And I started investigating, people like Kent Hovind, Chuck Missler, and many other people like that. And then over time, found, more people like yourself and Chris White, Gon Shimura, all these other people that study these things. But for the most part, when I first studied, it was mostly about creation, evolution, and the alien deception. And then that grew into, deeper and deeper studies of how that transhumanism connects to all these things. And that's mostly what this new album is about, is connecting the transhuman deception and how AI and technology, I believe, is kind of like the next level disguise of these fallen angels, of the Nephilim, that they will take the disguise of technology in some way. Arthur C. Clarke has this famous saying where it says, at some point, technology becomes indistinguishable from magic. And I think we're at that point with quantum computing and CERN technology where they don't really know how this works. When the scientists themselves making the technology doesn't even realize how this thing works. And they claim they're getting this information from the muse or the ether, and it's kind of just being downloaded to them, like people like Tesla and others had said throughout time. I see that we're kind of being led toward this ultimate transhuman conclusion.
It's fascinating hearing rap and hearing terms like order out of chaos and homunculus and things just coming at you out of the speakers. It's like not the kind of thing you expect to hear with a really amazing beat track behind it. In fact, some audio clips too that you include in your in some of your tracks. In fact, you mentioned science fiction. Of course, one of the greatest series of all time was Rod Serling's Twilight Zone, and you include some audio from one of my favorite episodes. In fact, we'll play a clip from this. We'll play this cut right now. This featuring Burgess Meredith and Fritz Weaver from Twilight Zone episode almost 60 years ago. This is Obsolete Man by Destiny Lab.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth. You are found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Your occupation?
A librarian.
A librarian. Since there are no more books, Mr. Wordsworth, there are no more libraries. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete.
There soon may be a time when the robots come alive and the unavoidable battle of flesh and metal will arrive. When the computers made to serve us suddenly become aware through demonic-like possession that's been programmed and prepared to replace belief in God with a mechanical device that can change its shape and make a face just like the Antichrist. It's the evilest incarnation that promises transformation, the technological abomination that causes desolation.
Obsolete Man, very much in keeping with the theme of transhumanism and what they want us to believe, that we can overcome death with science.
Yeah. I mean, this has been written into our psyche for, I would say the last 200 years, kind of, where it's kind of began to become this kind of sci-fi type of thing, going back to even the silent films, some of the first silent to Metropolis. Right. It's basically exactly that. They create this robotic female goddess creature that becomes the god of humanity through technology, and ultimately it's a giant, evil presence with the pentagram in the background of it. The overtones are undeniable.
There's definitely a supernatural element to all of your music too. It's not just about science and the abuse thereof, but as people would expect with titles like Higher Entities and Paranormal Species. Again, what was the path that led you to the research behind this? I mean, obviously you're using a lot of material, a lot of terminology that requires some study. This is not stuff that you just pick up on the street.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt. I mean, that's one of the reasons I felt music was a perfect platform for this. I became kind of a fan of when I found the genre of Christian rap. It's kind of an unknown genre, but when I found, wow, I kind of like this. It's the same style of music that I like, but it's talking about positive stuff. But nobody really dug that deep. It was just kind of praise Jesus music, for the most part. There were a few kind of off the wall rappers, but I thought, wow, what a perfect, and what happened is I went and saw Kent Hovind live at a speaking engagement. And he was talking about how a friend of his or someone that he had met had made a Barney the Dinosaur spin-off ministry. There was a creation ministry with their own version of kind of Barney the Dinosaur, but it was creation based. And I thought, wow, that's cool. And he said, and what can you all in this audience use? You all have talents. What can you use to expose evolution and spread the word of God? And that just really kind of, convicted me in a way that I thought, like, if I don't do this, who else is going to do it? It's like all these things that come together. I feel like this is kind of destined to be. I really got to try doing this. And I started, I hadn't made music in probably 10 years, and I reached out to a friend that I made music with before, and and we just started kind of doing it on the side for fun. And at first I tried to shop it around to see if I could get a Christian label to sign us. But now I know, looking back, that was completely ridiculous and was never going to happen with the topics we were discussing. So I'm glad that we've gone independent.
Well, yeah. Sharon kind of ran into that with her original series, The Laodicea Chronicles, when she had a publisher for her first couple of novels, and then they started asking questions like, well, you got crop circles and UFOs in here. And government conspiracies, which weren't quite as popular during the George W. Bush presidency. So we kind of parted company with the publishers. Sort of the same experience there. Well, let's roll another sample of another track here. This is one that I like a lot, and again, it's a callback to our good friends Justin and Wes Fall, and the title of their film Higher Entities. But boy, this one really rocks.
Something underground and strange is in our midst. It's scientists open gateways to the dark abyss, and governments want access because they can't resist. Their interest is to weaponize and enlist interdimensional beings who have abilities, who have intentions to pose as higher entities. But their deceptions are shown throughout history, and who they are and what they want is not a mystery, because we made contact, we're going way back. Through every culture and time they've had an impact. They've come to lay traps, the hearts are pitch black, and now we're under attack. Truth has been hijacked. These are not light beams, man, that's a pipe dream. If you can see through the veil, it's like a fight scene. Sinister visitors are diabolic monsters, mischievous tricks to sick, wicked imposters. They promise wisdom for sacrificial victims. They need the blood and the rituals they're driven, and the elites are the ones that feed these demons, and they're controlling many people for a season. Aliens and UFOs, fallen angels in mind control. Do you really know who's friend from foe? These are the things that we expose. Computers, robots, outer space, a secret underground government base. Did we evolve from the apes? So many questions that we face.
Destiny Lab and Higher Entities, and what was there any connection? I mean, did their film inspire the track? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that song is actually in the track, plays at the end of the documentary.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten that they'd mentioned that you were working on that. Okay, duh.
Yeah, so I made that specifically for them, and that's why it kind of has that 80s vibe, because they kind of were going for an 80s VHS kind of Stranger Things vibe with what they're doing. So the hook on that song especially is kind of like an 80s corny sounding hook, and that's kind of on purpose to kind of have that vibe of the 80s. So but that was fun, definitely make. I did a song for their other their Hollow Earth Chronicles as well.
But I'm laughing because not only should I have noticed that because I'm in the film, but the fact that I'm so old, the 80s was when I was at the in the middle of my radio career as a top 40 disc jockey. So the fact that it was an 80s kind of vibe to it, to me, that just sounded like contemporary music.
Well, yeah, you got it at least, right? That's what you vibed with it, right?
Exactly. I was writing down some tracks here to ask you about. I put an extra star next to that one because, boy, that one's really good.
Nice.
Shaboom, Oh man. So again, what is it that inspires you? What is it that gets you? Do you start with a hook? Do you start with a phrase and then build around that? What is it that? How do these songs come out of your head?
Well, I mean, ultimately, like you were saying earlier, not every song is about Nephilim and off the wall weird stuff. I do have some regular praise and worship, just talking about Jesus, talking about the Messiah, talking about, how we've all been in hard times and how to get out, how to treat other people. I've got songs on abortion, and I've got, all kinds of different subjects. But, ultimately the goal is to be a link in the chain to lead people to Christ. I mean, that's my ultimate goal. Is I know there's so many obstacles, and this is one of the deceptions that almost got me. And I feel it's become more and more prevalent with the New Age and the occult being externalized. All this stuff has been externalized. Witchcraft, everything's about vampires and the occult anymore, and it's become so externalized to the point where it's not really up for debate anymore. I mean, they are trying to push witchcraft on all our kids, and they're doing it with a new age kind of disguise, or with aliens, or with, channeling, or playing with Ouija boards. There's so many different ways they're doing it, but I just really felt, somebody's got to talk about this stuff in a way that exposes it. And I think you and me both were just a little bit ahead of our times. We were talking about this stuff way back, and Sharon as well. We were talking about stuff way back before it was really as mainstream as it is, right now. But I think that's because we're called to do so. We weren't doing it. I wasn't doing it for fame and fortune by any means. I was losing money and giving most of my music away. And it was just something that I wanted to do because I felt convicted to do it, and no one else was. And when I set out to do the music, I basically think, I just think of all the deceptions that are out there, and I usually start with the beat. So Donovan or Genetics, who I work with, who's my right-hand man, will send me a beat, and I have a lot of different subjects already written down, and I'll just see kind of what that inspires me to start writing. And some songs come really quick, and sometimes songs takes months to rewrite and go back and forth and ultimately finish. So just depends on the subject.
The thing that's really disturbing is that you say, we were kind of out ahead of the curve back in 2005 when we started our podcast. Really, Chuck Missler and Gary Stearman and the late J.R. Church, Tom Horn, Steve Quayle were really, the pioneers down this field. L.A. Marzulli. But even, in the grand scheme of things, when you look back at when they really began with their ministries and reaching out using the internet and getting the message out, it really is not more than 15 or 20 years. I mean, our podcast, PID Radio, goes back 15 years, and we were, building on what we were learning from the likes of Steve Quayle and his shortwave radio broadcast, and interviews with people like Tom Horn and Stan Deo and L.A. Marzulli and so on. But you go back a little further with J.R. Church and Gary Stearman. But even they, 20, 25 years maybe.
It's not really. I think the first guy that wrote a book was that I.D. Thomas.
I.D. Thomas, right?
Yeah. And other than that, I mean, there's not much talked about. In the
2,000-year history of Christianity, we're just looking at the last quarter century or so where this stuff is coming to the fore, not just in the awareness of the people in the body of Christ, but the fact that this occultism is so open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of a one thing. You look in kind of what the Book of Enoch says, and it talks about the fallen angels and Semyaza, and it talks that it brought the cutting of roots and witchcraft, and it kind of combines those two things as if they're one thing. Witchcraft and pharmakia are kind of like combined into one unit as a whole, and then also they brought technology, all these things that they brought, I don't think in themselves, necessarily are all could be evil, because these are things stolen from heavenly realms, basically, and then inverted and twisted to be used in sinful ways. But it's kind of like fire. You can use fire for good or evil, or the internet, or so many other things are like that. Technology in itself isn't necessarily bad. It's what we as sinners inherently are guided to eventually want to do. The ultimate thing is the original sin. It's always the thing that's in the hearts of man. You shall be as gods, and that's what we're still trying to do. They're aiming to create heaven here on earth, upload our consciousness, and somehow live forever is their goal. And
that kind of hints at where we are in the prophetic timeline as we get closer to the finish line of history, at least in this eon. And that relates to track 14 on the new CD, Shift Your Paradigm, Revelation Unraveling.
This is music that's been destined for this time and age, bringing the message with solutions that prepares a way. While we're still human, moving closer towards the judgment day, they have invaded, grooming sheep as they set the stage. I fear no evil, I got Jesus, my deliverer. I've been forgiven, saved, no longer a prisoner. I've been redeemed, made, I'm an alien, a visitor. That's right, I'm freed, I'm remade with the signature. Got a new vision, I've been say because his son is risen. It's a decision that was made to send me on this mission, exposing lies and proclaiming truth without no fear. We see the signs of the times and we shout it clear. Unfolding prophecy that's obviously happening, erupting rapidly, it's absolutely baffling. We cannot panic even if they plan a whole pandemic. We knew eugenics was a scam to hybridize genetics. Needed a lie to unite the world to all obey. They've always tried throughout time to change our DNA, paving the way for the Antichrist and one world government with sheep are lining up to take the mark. They're loving it. What in the world could be happening when everyone that you know has been controlled into panicking? Mind control like the mannequins. Is this a sign of the times? Revelation unraveling.
Destiny Lab, Revelation Unraveling. Of course, that caught my eye because it's very similar to the title that Sharon created for the weekly program we do for Skywatch TV, Unraveling Revelation. But either way you look at it, we are getting close to... We're getting close to that end where we're seeing things unfold right in front of our eyes. What was it that inspired the song?
That was one of the last songs that I made on this track. I made that just a few months before I released the album because I wanted to have a couple songs that were really kind of with the times of what we were going through right now. And I was just kind of seeing with this whole pandemic going down, with all these things coming together, we're reaching what I kind of see as like this event horizon, this crescendo of like, where else do we go? When you start normalizing pedophilia, when you start, fighting for the rights of killing babies and making that your centralized foundational thing that these people, think is important in our world. My goodness, where else are we going to go before Christ is going to return? Or Revelation is going to unfold and prophecy is actually going to start happening. And we're seeing, I believe, Revelation unraveling. We're seeing prophecy unfold right before our eyes, and that's why the Bible bookshelves are sold out, and people are buying and digging into the Word. Right now is more than ever time to be able to witness to the masses. The people are so disenfranchised, and so many people are looking for answers. And I think people that were on the fence are now kind of getting off and investigating a little bit more. But there's also so much disinformation. It's amazing, as like you're saying, not many people used to talk about the Nephilim. You type in the Nephilim now on YouTube, most of the stuff is just nonsense, talking about, mud fossils and dinosaurs don't exist and all this nonsense and this disinformation they've thrown in to muddy the waters. And that's on purpose. This is guided by the enemy. So anybody investigating, what's the Nephilim about? Let me type that in. Oh, this is nonsense. I'm not going to study that any farther. They just automatically assume it's all nonsense. And so we're seeing a lot of that right now. And I think it's the enemy's last ditch effort. And I think God's allowing his grace in a way for us to see these things, for people to have these things externalized to the point where you can't really deny it anymore. And hopefully that they choose whom they serve and pick the right side.
Well, that's one of the things that really struck Sharon and me as we researched our last two books, actually. There are things that have been discovered by archaeologists and epigraphers, those who study ancient scrolls and inscriptions to try to decipher what the ancients thought about various things, specifically what they believed and in who they believed. There are things now just in the last 40 years that the great theologians of centuries past had no knowledge of and could not have included in their cosmology, what they were teaching to their congregations, because it just was not available. For example, one of the themes that we've really hit the last couple of books is the importance of the cult of the dead around ancient Israel, and how that's reflected not just in what the pagans believed and the sacrifices that they made to their gods, but how that is reflected in end times prophecy. If you know what you're looking at, you know what the pagans around ancient Israel believed, you can see it. But it's only been the last 40 years that scholars have agreed that there even was a cult of the dead in the ancient Levant, which is, Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria. So we're living in a generation that's really the first to have access to a lot of this information. So it's really not a surprise that the enemy is ramping up the disinformation at the same time.
Yeah. roots of the Black Lives Matter movement, for instance, and some of the main leaders within this movement study the practice of Ifa, which is basically, ancestor worship.
Right.
And they pour out libations before every single meeting, before every single gathering, before every single event and march. They're pouring out libations, asking these spirits to indwell within them. And they're trying to reinvoke this kind of African type of a voodoo-like belief system and have this Ifa renaissance is what they're kind of believe. So this is we battle not against flesh and blood. I mean, this is straight up Ephesians 6:11, 6:12 is what we're seeing happen here. So it's right in front of our eyes that this is a spiritual war.
Now, bringing this information forward, I know Mike Heiser has run into this with his Divine Council research, and we've seen some of that as we've incorporated that work into what we've been doing. You're obviously bringing this into your music. Mike has caught a lot of flack for teaching polytheism, which that's just a misunderstanding of what the Divine Council is all about. What kind of reaction have you gotten to working transhumanism, creation, and this sort of divine council, this understanding that these small g gods that are called gods by capital G God in the Bible are real and influencing the world around us? What kind of reaction have you gotten from Christians who've heard your music?
Oh, it's been mixed, that's for sure. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Most people that know me personally don't even have any clue that I make rap music. This is something I'm kind of a closet rapper, so to speak. So I don't go around telling a lot of people that I know about this kind of music just because it's such a it's such an off the wall topic, and the things I speak about are just so strange. Every once in a while I'll let somebody in on it and show them the music, but not very often do people even know that I make this music. So I kind of do it on and that's why I use a stage name, Arc and Archaeologic, and that was kind of a spinoff of archaeology because that was one of my favorite subjects.
Sure.
And so I've gotten a lot of different, responses. For the most part, it's actually been positive, and especially online, the people that start studying this or get turned on the music, it's amazing how many people have reached out to me and said, hey, finally I found something that was able to connect, my mom, my dad, and my grandpa, all of us, the whole family loves this stuff, and so it's something that I think that the parents can love it for the subject matter, their kids can love it for the sound, and the grandparents can even understand the theology of it sometimes, and see the importance of these things. So, but for the most part, it's positive. It's not something that is a very fringe topic, as you know. So it's not something that's mainstream Christian. I have had one time I submitted a song to a Christian live listening program where they were just listening to any new Christian music. And the guy turned on one of my songs that was talking about aliens and the Nephilim, and he got about 10 seconds into it, and he just started making these strange faces and just turned it off. He's like, nuh-uh, I don't know what that's about, but no, not here, So it's not for everybody. That's for sure.
Well, understanding that these topics are not really necessary to understanding these topics are not necessary to salvation. I mean, we are saved by grace through faith in Jesus Christ, but the point is, what kind of response have you gotten from people who were like you and like me, a real fan of science fiction and assuming as a kid that it was science that would save us someday, that, we would see that Star Trek future where want would be eliminated because we would have replicators that could just make whatever we wanted whenever we needed. There would be no more hunger, no more war. Well, except, if we ran into a warlike species like the Klingons or the Romulans, I guess. But, the mythologies and the superstitions of the ancient past would be done away with, and we would replace it all with a new age of science and reason.
The utopia.
Yeah, and you come to realize that that's not the way it's going to be. What what kind of reaction have you gotten from people who have found your music and in it found, hey, wait a minute, this is resonating more than this new age scientism that I've been following?
Yeah, I've had that as well. I've gained some really good relationships that I've made with people just online through chats. I kind of used to love to go into some of these new age chats and just share my music and just talk to people about subjects that I, like sleep paralysis and like, the alien deception or the new age teachings, the I am God deception, and kind of just helping people connect these dots. And that's where I was a link in the chain, not only with my music, but my whole thing is to connect people then to people like yourself, people that are real researchers that have more information to read about. I always connect people to, of course, Gon's Age and Deceit, 1, 2, and 3, and letting people, don't believe me, investigate these things for yourself. People like Joe Jordan and the C4 research group who I've worked with a lot. So my goal is to try to connect, because I've studied all these things, I play the music, people like the sound, like, well, where can I learn more about this, that, or the other? And then I guide them, toward the specific subject that they're interested in to somebody who's a little bit more equipped or in-depth researcher about that stuff. So that's kind of how I kind of see the music as well, as just a link in the chain to other people. But it's a mixed thing. The whole sci-fi thing is all about the idea of building this utopia through technology, escaping the Earth, the hero's journey, of course, ultimately facing your evil presence, confronting it and beating it, and then coming out as this, evolved, enlightened being of some sort. And it's just so repackaged. And I think that's the thing that we've got to connect the dots. If you could connect the dots to somebody and show all these different universal overlaps between the alien deception, the fallen angels, sleep paralysis, the occult deception and channeling, and what all those entities say, the enlightened masters, all these people, all these ancient mystery schools and occult, they all are basically saying the same thing. They're all teaching the original sin idea in some sort of repackaged way. Is that a coincidence? And then you have to tap in. Well, then there's people getting attacked through sleep paralysis, alien abduction experiences. Once they recognize these things are demonic and rebuke them in the name and authority of Jesus, they leave and it stops. Is that another coincidence? So you start breaking down these walls to someone and letting them, hey, just investigate it for yourself. Look more into these things because, so many people are looking for answers, especially in the New Age. And the New Age doesn't really have any foundation that's true. It's just blowing in the wind, And so really people want something that's a foundational truth, I think, that's something you could count on to be real. And so that's why I think it's, the Bible is the perfect choice if you want something that's real and true and trustworthy. And
as L.A. Marzulli says, it is the guidebook to the supernatural, which
yes.
Let me play a sample from this track, because this is probably the only song I've ever heard that includes Mothman, Chupacabras, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Jersey Devil, Loch Ness Monster, and Slender Man all in the same track. This is called Paranormal Species by Destiny Lab.
This isn't the Chupacabra. I just want to remind you, no, this is something huge. This is something that reminds me of the Mothman stories of Point Pleasant and how the Mothman has scared the living daylights out of me, because when I'm in the dark, I wouldn't want two big red eyes staring at me from the window, tapping on the window. And then I look out and I see something hunched over with big wings, or a flying demon or something. I don't want that anywhere near me.
What are these creatures that so confound us, from the Mothman to the Chupacabras, the Bigfoot, the some call a Sasquatch, legendary icons like monster mascots, the Loch Ness Monster, the Jersey Devil, creepy shadow people that'll make you tremble, paranormal species on every level. When they're unleashed, it's like transcendental.
So that really, if you can't get on coast to coast AM with that, then there ain't no justice.
I wish. I tried. I've sent it to Coast to Coast. Now, the opening voice clip is actually Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero Radio.
Right.
Who we did meet him. He lives in Oregon, same as us. We actually went up and met him, and he actually played this song on Ground Zero, and kind of introduced it to the masses on his radio show. So that was kind of awesome. But,
yeah. Well, yeah, Clyde does a great show, and he was very gracious in hosting a lot of friends of ours on that program. Coast to Coast AM, to give George Norrie credit, he will often give Christians an opportunity to speak. In fact, just recently, Josh Peck was on there again.
Awesome.
We do get opportunities. Right. So we get opportunities from time to time. We just have to take our shots when when they are presented to us, and you, Dave, are certainly doing it with in a very unique way, but a very catchy way, and in a way that's going to reach people that people doing what I do not going to appeal to. But we have to find ways, creative ways, to get the message outside the people who are already in the choir, and I think that's where your work is really needed. So after a 7-year hiatus, Destiny Lab is back with a new disc, Shift Your Paradigm. You'll find it online, destinylab.com. Dave, is that the best place for people to go to get to hear the music and to buy a copy?
Yep. Just go to destinylab.com and everything's on there.
All right. That link will be in the notes, along with a link to the new video for Fee-Fi-Fo-Fum, and we'll let the title track take us out. Destiny Lab, Shift Your Paradigm. Dave, or Archeologic from Destiny Lab, thanks for being with us tonight.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Derek.
Check the show notes for the link, and as Destiny Lab takes us out of here with the track Order Out of Chaos, stick around. 2 new conferences to tell you about straight ahead, and yes, more social media links. All that as A View from the Bunker continues straight ahead.
I've got no strings, they're gonna be holding me down. Nobody controlling me now. Can somebody turn up the sound? I gotta be loud to be clear, to properly fight the puppeteers. Lyrical bombardier, verbally at the tip of the spear. I wanna make sure it's loud. They better be speakers that pound, for rocking and shaking the ground. We're praying the lost will be found. Some people keep buying these schemes, had one too many vaccines. We're gonna expose the machine, help others cut off their streams. They're making problems to solve that never were issues at all. Hegelian dialectic rhetoric is their protocol.
Where were you on 10/13? As the Middle East erupts in chaos, a devastating wave of terror shocks the nation. Thousands lie dead. An apocalyptic Christian cult is blamed. And suddenly, believers disappear as internment camps spring up almost overnight. Meanwhile, a deadly virus spreads. A desperate country demands answers, and only a few dare ask, what's in the vaccine? FBI Special Agent Joe Eunice follows a trail of evidence to a small town in Iowa and a young boy who received a mysterious email from God. Now, racing against time, Agent Eunice finds himself working side by side with reclusive internet broadcaster Barney Eisen. Together, they discover a disturbing truth at the center of the conspiracy. They wrestle not against flesh and blood. The God Conspiracy, a novel by Derek P. Gilbert. Get it now in paperback and Kindle. From Rose Avenue Fiction.
Talking the Walk every Sunday night from the beautiful Missouri Ozarks. This is A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. You find us online at vftb.net, on social media. Twitter, at View from Bunker, or at Derek Gilbert. On Facebook, of course, because that's where the people's is. View from the Bunker, my personal page there under Derek Gilbert, D-E-R-E-K. Now on Parler, although I still say it should be Parlay, but also now on MeWe. Finally gave in and loaded into MeWe, and you'll find me there at Parler. Derek P. Gilbert, the handle at both of those places. And it struck me that MeWe is actually a nice Facebook replacement. We'll stick around on Facebook for a little while yet, but that is a good Facebook replacement, and Parler a good Twitter replacement. So we will eventually wean ourselves off of those others, but as long as those are still opportunities to witness to those not already in the choir, we will keep those handles there. You can hear the wind blowing in the background as I'm recording this on Saturday evening, November 14th, and got the window open here because it's kind of a balmy evening here in the Oza, about 67 degrees Fahrenheit as I'm recording this around 9:30 p.m. on Saturday night, but we've got a front going through. And apparently there have been some tornado warnings issued in our area. Mid-November tornadoes, not really typical here in the United States, but with the change of temperature we're expecting tonight, it's supposed to drop down to the low 40s. So I'm not surprised by the wind speed picking up. What is going on here in these United States? The election, according to the major media, has been decided. And anyone who questions, anyone who raises the issue of voter impropriety or voter irregularities, voting irregularities, is a conspiracy theorist and probably a white supremacist to boot. We should just get used to this. This is the treatment that anyone who has voiced any support for President Trump over the last 4 years has been receiving from the mainstream media, and we should expect no differently. Had a conversation with a friend tonight who asked me what I thought was going to happen. And he sounded kind of down and depressed about the whole thing. But we just need to remember as Christians that our primary home, our citizenship, first and foremost, is in a kingdom. And regardless of who is inaugurated, who is sworn into office on January 20th of 2021, our king still sits on the throne. Now, please understand, I'm not saying we should sit back passively and just let whatever happen, because whoever occupies the Oval Office will have a big impact on the way we live our lives and the freedom we have to share our faith. Think what you will of Donald Trump and his personal life over the last 50 years in the public eye, but he has really stood in the gap for Christians. And his door's going to slam if I don't get it. Okay. As I said, things really getting interesting outside weather-wise. Anyhow, but we can't tie up all of our hopes in who sits in the Oval Office and who that president appoints to sit on the Supreme Court. Those are important things, no doubt. There's no question. But still, ultimately, our hope is not in this life only. It is in the world to come. Our King's kingdom is not of this world, and our job is to be about the business of getting people into that kingdom. Granted, it will be more difficult if Joe Biden takes office and if those behind him have their way. But if the first century church could survive the Sanhedrin and the Roman emperors, we can survive whoever has the office on January 21st of 21. A couple of conferences to tell you about. Hear the Watchman set up another conference in Southern California. We had hoped to be in Irvine, California this month, but that didn't happen. Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who ironically was caught at a gathering that exceeded his own restrictions on gatherings, birthday party with more than the dozen people from two households that they were limiting things to at a very, very expensive restaurant called the French Laundry. We should not be surprised. Rules for thee, not for me. Just like Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser violating her own travel restrictions for people in D.C. and going up to Delaware to join in the party for Joe Biden. Apparently, that's considered essential travel by Mayor Bowser. Anyway, we will be coming back to Southern California in January. They've set up a conference at the Legacy Hotel and Spa in San Diego. This is a Christian-owned hotel, January 14th through 17th. The list of speakers is growing, but as of now, I'm aware that it includes Jamie Walden of Omega Dynamics, Pastor Paul Begley, David Heavener, and Lieutenant Colonel David Giamona, who we met in Irvine last year, 2019. at the Irvine Conference. He's the co-author of a forthcoming book called The Military Guide to Armageddon. Sounds like an interesting title. In fact, I've got a preview copy of it over here. I just haven't had time to crack it open yet, but I look forward to it. Fascinating guy, and you will be blessed. Now, this conference will be limited to the first 200. So besides Sharon and me, Colonel Giamona, Pastor Paul Begley, Jamie Walden, David Heavener, 200 other people. So if you want to be a part of that, log on to hearthewatchman.com and reserve your place there, hearthewatchman.com. The Decoding the Supernatural Conference. This will be a relatively small thing in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Global Fire Ministries by Jeff Jansen, L.A. Marzulli, Sharon, and me. We'll be speaking over the course of the weekend, March 4th through 7th. This is at Global Fire Ministries. You'll find them online, globalfireministries.com. Not much information on the website there yet, but there will be as we get closer to the date. This is called the Decoding the Supernatural Conference. Jeff's got a television program on the It's Supernatural Network. That's Sid Roth's network, called Decoding the Supernatural. We had hoped to be there, in fact, this past week. As L.A. Marzulli was out there along with some other guests for recording programs with Jeff, but we were here in the Ozarks recording programs in the brand new Skywatch TV studio. 6 programs for Tom Horn's forthcoming book, to which Sharon and I both contributed chapters, called The Messenger, and you will see those on the network Skywatch TV programs beginning in just about a week and a half. Drew Graffia has got to work overtime to get those things edited and turned around in a real hurry so they can be captioned and sent out to the networks. But anyway, we will be out there in Charlotte at the ISN studios with Jeff at some point, I'm sure, but definitely in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, in March for the Decoding the Supernatural Conference, along with L.A. Marzulli. For more information, globalfireministries.com is the website to watch. Later in March, we will be back with our friends from Hear the Watchman, Mike Kerr, Jeannie Moore in Dallas. This will be at the Hilton DFW Lakes Executive Conference Center in Grapevine. Once again, that's March 18th through 21st. More details are coming from that. And then in April, God willing, we'll be back in the Holy Land, the Skywatch TV Tour of Israel, April 18th through May 1st, alongside our colleagues from Skywatch TV, Donna Howell and Allie Henson, and our special guest, Messianic Rabbi Zev Porat, who will join us in Tel Aviv, and we will take you on essentially a rolling conference through the Holy Land. Some absolutely fascinating archaeological sites, and of course, the important historical sites as well, including ascending to the Temple Mount. For more information, log on to skywatchinisrael.com. That's skywatchinisrael.com. Appreciate you taking time to listen tonight. Appreciate also if you could leave a review at Spreaker, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Music. We're on all of those. Also, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever else fine podcasts are sold. Give us a like at Facebook. And remember, A View from the Bunker is a production of Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Remember, gilberthouse.org, our main internet site, is also where Sharon and I post our weekly Bible study. We go through the Bible in chronological order. We're now just entering the book of Leviticus, and you'll find that online at gilberthouse.org. Our announcer is DC Good, and we do this because we wrestle not against flesh and blood. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is A View from the Bunker.